inaction by the city leads to action by the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter.
We just don't feel comfortable going back or inviting the community back with us.
After a September incinerator incident, YVAS says they won't return to that facility. We'll have the details. Plus, a mother speaks out.
He held him down, punched him in the face, and he got all bleed on his hand, a lip. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong.
Montana Police Department under fire for their handling of a mental health crisis. The MTN 430 News starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. I'm Andrea Lutz. It's been more than a month since a toxic incident sent Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter workers to the hospital, and now the shelter says it's not going back. The shelter's executive director says they will not move back into the city-owned facility on Monab Road after the city has failed to fully address contamination concerns. It all started September 10th when a ventilation issue forced meth smoke from the incinerator into the shelter, sending more than a dozen employees to the hospital. The shelter gave the city 30 days to do a complete cleanup, but leaders say the city will not promise to stop using that incinerator for drug disposal. Executive Director Trinity Halverson says she won't risk her staff's safety under those conditions.
We do have a few employees that have lingering health effects. A lot of people are experiencing kind of maybe more traumatic stress, anxiety, those types of things that were in the incident. And so all the more reason to make the decision to not go back if we can't guarantee their safety.
The shelter is currently providing services at a temporary warehouse on South Frontage Road. They anticipate having all of their personal property removed within 30 days. We're going to have much more on this story coming up tonight at 5:30.
Today, dominated by the wind. We started off with the clouds, and there's been a few showers around. But even as the sun broke through, this is a look out towards Bozeman Pass, out towards Livingston. In fact, take a look at where the Livingston Airport is right now. Gusts up to 41 miles per hour. You can really see the trees moving around there with a really beautiful shot as we start looking up towards the mountains. Cloud cover around Sydney right now. But earlier, I could actually see the camera moving back and forth. The wind gusts hitting up to 43 miles per hour. Sustained winds at 33. And here's downtown Miles City. You can see the power lines starting to move in some of the trees. And again, wind gusts, they're hitting 30 to 40 miles per hour. I'll look ahead beyond the wind when we get back with the forecast.
A Great Falls mother is speaking out after claiming her deaf son was mistreated by police during a mental health crisis. MTN's Quinton Shores has more on how agencies are responding, what's being done to address the gap in the mental health crisis response.
He ran up, and they grabbed, they held him down, punched him in the face, and he got all bleed on his hand, a lip. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong.
Trudy Fisher, an advocate for the deaf community here in Great Falls, recently took to Facebook to share her experience with law enforcement. She says her son Jeremy, who is deaf and struggles with PTSD and ADHD, was mistreated by Great Falls police when undergoing a crisis.
Police should have provided deaf advocate. That's what I would have thought.
We've reached out to GFPD several times for the story, but have yet to hear back. So we reached out to the Cascade County Sheriff, who acknowledges their deputies just aren't equipped to handle mental health crises.
People obtain their, doctorate and masters in college to be able to deal with these complex type of issues, and there's so many different issues.
Although there's been a shift towards law enforcement handling mental health related crises, Sheriff Slaughter admits that more often than not, they make the situation worse. They often go into these situations blind without being aware of a mental health or substance abuse problem, creating a hostile environment for all parties involved.
Co-occurring issues, so they're dealing with a chemical dependency issue that is masking or hiding their mental health crisis. And oftentimes we don't really discover those till they come to jail.
Funding cuts nationwide through the Department of Health have significantly reduced the amount of mental health clinics and crisis coordinators, resulting in law enforcement having to step up and handle the situation. Fortunately, the Sheriff's Office is planning on addressing some of these issues in the near future.
We don't have a mobile response team currently. We also don't really have a crisis center. So they got this grant and hired me to get this up and running.
Cami Stone has been tasked with coordinating a future crisis mobile team that would respond to mental health crises and have qualified mental health professionals provide aid. Right now, this is still in the planning phase as more funding is needed. They're hoping to get this operational within a year.
We really need the community of Great Falls and Cascade County to step up and start working on different financial things. And it doesn't always have to be monetary things.
In the meantime, the sheriff's office is asking for support, feedback, and patience from its citizens. In Great Falls, I'm Quentin Shores, MTN News.
Montana Governor Greg Gianforte is overseas this week, meeting with South Korean leaders to open new doors for Montana's economy and promote the state global stage. In Seoul today, the governor met with U.S. diplomats and top Korean business leaders at the U.S. Embassy. Talks centered on boosting trade and showcasing Montana's strengths, from wheat, beef, and energy exports to emerging industries like quantum technology, photonics, bioscience, and security. The trip is a part of a broader effort to strengthen Montana's economic and trade ties with South Korea. Gianforte met with those Korean business leaders today and will continue to look at other resources and commodities throughout the week. Tensions are rising in the Middle East, and tonight President Donald Trump is sending a sharp warning to Hamas after a weekend of deadly clashes in Gaza. Erica Brown is at the White House with more on the president's message, plus his take on Ukraine's fight against Russia and the latest in trade talks with China.
At the White House Monday, President Trump signed an agreement with Australia's Prime Minister on rare earths and critical minerals. During the meeting, President Trump also announced plans to visit China fairly early next year and warned of even bigger tariffs on Chinese imports if a trade agreement isn't reached soon.
China's paying 55% and a potential 155% come November 1st unless we make a deal.
And just days after his White House meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Trump expressed doubt on whether Ukraine could win its war with Russia.
They could still win it. I don't think they will, but they could still win it.
President Trump has called for an immediate ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, with Russia keeping most of the Ukrainian territory it currently occupies. Zelensky has repeatedly rejected that idea. Over the weekend, a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas was put to the test after Israel's military launched strikes in Gaza following an attack that killed 2 Israeli soldiers. Hamas denied responsibility, but President Trump blamed them for violating the ceasefire.
They're going to be very good. They're going to behave. They're going to be nice. And if they're not, we're going to go and we're going to eradicate them if we have to. They'll be eradicated.
Trump said that didn't mean U.S. boots on the ground, but that there were many countries who'd sign on to the deal who said they'd be willing to, quote, take care of the situation. Erica Brown, CBS News, the White House.
Tonight, the federal shutdown is in its 20th day. The Senate is reconvening tonight to hold its 11th vote to fund the government in hopes of breaking the stalemate. Last week, the Senate left town after a bill fell short of 60 votes needed to advance. Republicans and Democrats are at odds as Democrats push for negotiations over health care tax credits to be included in a funding measure.
We should be able to wrap this up this week if they will sit down and have a negotiation with us. The president has spent 1 hour negotiating this issue with leadership in Congress. That's it, 1 hour. They need to get in the room and stay in the room until we can hash this out.
20 days since the Democrats recklessly shut down the United States government. And the Democrats are making some very costly history here. Don't lose that in all that's happening. This is now the 3rd longest shutdown in history.
And the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, says he would bring the House back into session if the Senate passes a bill to pay federal employees and military service members who continue to work during the shutdown. A new poll finds Americans are increasingly pessimistic about their ability to find a good job, with 47% saying they're not confident. Rising prices for groceries, housing, healthcare, electricity, and gas are major sources of stress. And as Mara Barrett reports, the future of AI data centers may further strain the grid.
New AP polling reveals a deepening unease among Americans about the economy and job prospects. Meanwhile, most people report their finances are holding steady, though very few feel like they're getting ahead. I dug through the results of the report, which found that 47% of people, nearly half, are not very or not at all confident they could find a good job if they wanted to. And that's likely because hiring is cooling and job openings have declined from pandemic highs, so people see fewer obvious opportunities. They're also not seeing a spike in salary. So that's not helpful either. And that's because wage gains aren't keeping pace with costs and inflation for many people, which means that the real value of pay has essentially been flat. That's as less than half of people report that they've even received a recent pay raise.
Before, many Americans were able to have bargaining power. They were job hopping. They were asking their employers for raises, and that kind of helped them eat the cost of inflation over time. But today, we're in a much different position because prices are rising, but wages are also cooling, and it's just a lot harder today to find a better paying job. So when it feels like you just can't really get ahead, what that means is that the dollars in your wallet just aren't really rising, or they can't really buy as much as they used to be able to.
And amid this lack of job confidence, electricity and grocery bills are considered, quote, major sources of financial stress, especially as the electric grid is increasingly stressed with AI usage and data center development. And business owners are passing on the prices of President Trump's tariffs to the consumer. Now, other respondents said that housing, healthcare, and gas prices are also a source of anxiety. And you'll notice the common denominator between all of those that I just listed, they're essential bills. They're day-to-day expenses that people can't peel back on in order to try to save money. And so it's those bills that consumers and voters judge the economy off of, not the well-performing stock market that the president often likes to tout. And so if people can't pay for the day-to-day goods that they need to survive, in their book, they're not getting the economic boom that many of them were promised from the campaign trail. A lot of people citing that as the main reason they were voting for President Trump last November. So as people continuously face elevated inflation, hiring freezes, tariff impacts, the federal worker layoffs, and political drama culminating in this government shutdown, all at the hands of the government itself, consumer confidence, understandably, has been on a downward trend. Maura Barrett, Scripps News Group, Denver.